Welcome everyone to the Small Business Growth Summit. Today's focus is on cultivating growth through communication. Today, as a guest speaker, we have my good friend, John Mathieson from the Dale Carnegie Institute. He runs the training for Houston, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio. John, you can correct me later. Sorry if I overpiped you there. But also joining us are Shivani Patel, Nash Allen, Steve Darcy, and of course myself, David Kersley. We are glad you are here. What is the Small Business Growth Summit? This is not a users group. This is about much, much more. Our mission is we want your company to be what you want it to be. What do you want to be? A business with 100 employees? A manufacturing company? A service provider? 100 employees? We want you to be successful. We want you to achieve your goals, and we are investing in you. When I say we, Dale Carnegie and GoEngineer. We at GoEngineer are a growing company with 300 employees roughly. We have 25 offices across 14 states. Who we serve? We serve you, the customer. One of the things that we're most proud of is down here on the bottom right on the fourth bullet point is small business. 2/3 of our customers employ 50 people or less, and a quarter of the organizations 5 or less. I know small business is the backbone of America. And yeah, our backbone might be a little sore right now. But we are a long ways from breaking. And I firmly believe that small business will lead this country back to heights it never imagined. And how are we going to do that? We're going to do that by working together and helping one another, and most importantly, communicating with each other. Today, here's John's bio. It's too big for me to read. John is started with Dale Carnegie in 2015. John is a tremendous golfer. He played golf at SMU with Payne Stewart. John and I met in 2003 when we both worked on the same research and development team. And John is revered, even in the industry today, as one of the top shaft analyst experts in the industry. Me, I'm David Kersley. Like John, and like many of you, I'm a small business owner, but I also work for GoEngineer. I've owned my own company since 2014. I've been lucky enough to live out both of my dream jobs. I always wanted to be in golf, and I've always wanted to be able to help other people. And I'm able to do that with GoEngineer, and especially with this Small Business Summit. Today, we're going to talk about communication. Not just communication on the SolidWorks side, but on the business side. That's what this series is about. Now, I wish I could tell you that every tip and trick that John and I have learned in our years of business was going to work perfectly every single time for you. I wish I could tell you that. It just doesn't work that way. But what we are going to do is talk about ways that we can help you. We're all in this together. So when it comes to SolidWorks Communications, one of the things that happens quite often is we have to import files. These files come from all kinds of sources of vendors. We have to be able to translate them, bring them in, manipulate them, and work with them. And sometimes it's cumbersome. But SolidWorks has some amazing tools that allow us to do this successfully. We can bring in files like Inventor, PTC, and NX thanks to software add-ins like 3D Interconnect. 3D Interconnect allows us to open third-party design data, leverage legacy 3D design from tools we already own. It is an intelligent knowledge of third-party design tools. It recognizes faces and edge IDs. We can directly insert these files into our SolidWorks assembly. We're going to do that today. And we can also open and make a base or a derived part. We can also break the link between these parts. Now you might be thinking, why do I need something like 3D interconnect? Well, imagine the simple word hello. I looked it up. There are over 6,500 languages in the world. Think about how many pieces of software are actually running on your computer right now. And you have to get them all to work. This is the word hello. It's just a simple picture. And the word hello in 140 different languages on this one slide. So we have to have things like FeatureWorks and 3D interconnect to allow us to work efficiently and communicate properly with our internal and external customers. We're going to open a step file. We're going to open an IGES file. And we're going to talk about Parasolid. Now, each one of these has their own proprietary code. This proprietary code allows them to write the code, and it allows them to create what we call a kernel. Now, when you think of kernel, most of us think like kernel of corn, and that's not the kernel we're looking at. We have to think about this as putting zeros and ones together to create something. Like this image here from the Matrix, right? Neo is a combination of zeros and ones all put together, and now all of a sudden we see an image. So that's what we have to have in our software so that we can interact with a file type like a PTC, a step, an IGES, or even a Parasolid. Now, Parasolid is our best friend of these types because SolidWorks is built and written on that Parasolid code or kernel. And lastly, we're going to open a part that's in Parasolid, and we're going to use FeatureWorks. And when we run FeatureWorks, you're going to be amazed at what it can do for you. So, with that said, let's jump into SolidWorks and Communication. I'm going to close this file here for just a second. So I've got a part. And with 3D interconnect, first you want to turn 3D interconnect on. At the top of your screen, click on Settings. And over on the left side, click on Import and make sure that this is enabled. Enable 3D Connect and click OK. And what that's going to allow us to do is to be able to bring in files. So what we want to do is we want to bring in a non-native SolidWorks file. Over here in our feature tree, you can see that some of these look just like SolidWorks parts. And you'll notice that some of these have a green associative arrow to it. And that is allowing us to maintain that connectivity between a part that is a non-native SolidWorks part and our file. So let's import this part file. So I'm going to go to Insert. I'm going to go to Component, Existing Part. I'm going to browse to here. And what we want to do is we want to bring in a non-native file. So over here on the bottom right of your screen, click on All Files. And I'm going to bring in an STP file, a step file. Now I'm just going to load it in. And you can see here I brought it in. I dropped it in place. And I can do things with this, especially at the assembly level. So I'm going to pick on this edge, and I want to mate it up properly. So I'm going to right-click now, and I'm going to select Open Loop. And this loop right here, notice how when the arrow's pointing away, it's looking at this face. But if I click on my arrow, I've now got the front edge of the plate. I'm going to hold down the Shift or the Control key. I'm going to pick on the back of the face. I'm going to mate this guy in place. And over here on the left, I'm not going to use a standard mate. I'm actually going to use an advanced mate, and we're going to use Profile Center. And it came in upside down. Well, we're not finished mating this part up. We've got these two little arrows here, clockwise, counterclockwise, so I can just pick. And now I've got my part in my assembly. And my green check. And we're all good. And notice that control panel's added in, and we have our associativity to the original part. If I wanted to check its fit, I could run evaluate, and I could run interference detection on this assembly. I'm going to close this one. Now we've got another assembly. And in this assembly, I want to bring in a PTC file. But first I want to open that part and I want to make some changes to it so that we can make this part up properly in the assembly. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have some communication back and forth with our vendor. And then they're going to tell us, hey, we need to make some changes. We'll communicate those changes and then we'll reinsert this part back into our assembly. So to do that, I'm going to go over here to, I'm going to open up some parts. 3D interconnect. And I'm going to open up this file here. It's a .prt.1. And the way PTC works their revisions is the .1 is just telling you the revision. The .2 would be the latest if there was a .2 and there was a revision, or a .3 or 4 or 5. So let's double click. And we're going to begin the translation process. So now we have our part in place. And there's our gear. Do we want to run diagnostics? I always hit yes. And it's looking for any faulty faces. We're just going to hit green check OK. So now what we want to do is we want to add some features to it. And we've already added in advance of this, we were going to add a keyway and a curved slot to this part. So I'm going to drag my keyway over. I'm going to pick this face here. And over here on the left, it's asking me for an edge. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to pick this edge. And it's going to think for a second. And it's going to put that keyway into our part, the same way we would have done if we had just a native SolidWorks file, right? Say OK. And what if we want to put this curved slot in here? I'm just going to drag it over this kind of this interface here. And for the edge, I'm going to pick this inner edge here. And I've added my library feature part while it's thinking, and now I've created this keyway and this slot in my part. And you'll notice that it's already translated it into a SolidWorks SLD PRT. I'm going to hit save. Real easy. Now I've got my SolidWorks part. And next thing I want to do is I want to go window, and we're going to get the assembly open here. And I want to drag and drop that part in. So give me 1 second. Well, we'll just do insert, component, existing part assembly, primary outlet pulley, and we can just drag and drop him in. And we're going to mate him up real easy. Let's do concentric. And we're going to move our gear out a little bit. And I want to do a width mate on this keyway. So I'm going to pick this face and this face. And we're going to pick our 4 faces. And we want to be able to mate up using this width mate. And we're going to pick the width mate and see the part automatically rotate. We're going to hit the green check. And now all we have to do is mate the back of the gear into here. So we've been able to take a part as a non-native SolidWorks part, been able to bring it in. Let's do a coincident. And now let's look at our assembly. So, oh man, we've got a serious issue here. So this is where we can save this part out as, export it out as a e-drawings and send it back to the customer. Or we can do screen share, or we can do Zoom like what we're doing today, and everybody can see the part. And the engineers can now go, okay, guess what? We actually need to make a change to that part. So the engineers make a change to the part. And what we want to be able to do from here is go back and get into where our new file is. So imagine that they send us a new file. And we've got supplier parts. There's our original part, and there's our solid part. And under alternate versions, they sent us a -2 or a .2. I'm just going to do a Control-C, a copy. I'm going to go back 1 file, and I'm going to place it in that same folder where the original pulley was. With 3D interconnect on, it's looking back at the original part, and it now realizes there is a second file in place. Go back to our assembly. Let's open up our gear. And notice over here, we still have the green arrow for associativity, but we also have this little recycle symbol right here. So if we click on it, and we hit update model, it's now reading in model number 2. And this is a dramatically changed gear. So we say, cool, let's save it. You want to minimize it. And now our assembly is up to date, and we can run interference detection. So using 3D Interconnect totally allows us to work with any type of file type that we've been able to use. We've been able to bring it in and maintain associativity, and now we're able to look at this part and work with it in a couple of different facets, right? We brought in the file, we changed it, and we're all set to go. I'm not going to save this. Now let's talk about bringing in an IGES and a step and then a parasolid. So I'm going to go to open. And I'm going to open an IGES file. And all of these are going to be the same so that we can see the way SolidWorks is translating and bringing these parts in. So I've got this IGES file. I'm going to, again, run import diagnostics. And I can see over on the left, unfortunately, I've got faulty faces. This is going to happen. Go ahead and run your diagnostic. Hit the green check OK. We've got our green arrow for associativity to the original part. Now, one thing that I'm trying to get to is look at this part and run FeatureWorks. And so I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to FeatureWorks. And when I do, notice that it's grayed out. The only thing available is options. And without FeatureWorks, the options don't work here, right? So what can I do with this file? If I pick on this face and I go to sketch on it, I cannot. I cannot sketch on it because it doesn't recognize it as planar or flat. I can go in and sketch on these planes, right, and create a feature, maybe a cut or something like that. I can grab this face, hold down Control, grab this one, and maybe do a move face, right? And I can grab this and just pull these up in the Y direction, right? And I can move those around. I can grab this face again, move face, and then just grab the orientation. I'm going to move these out in the Z direction. And so if I do some features like a boss or a cut on an original plane or create new planes, I absolutely can do that. So we do have some flexibility with opening and controlling IGES files. Let's open a step file. So I'm going to open up a step file. And if you have any questions, please chime in on the chat. Steve Darcy is here. He can answer some of them, and I'll be answering them here shortly as well. And again, we're going to run import diagnostics. Again, look at this. It actually recognized that because it's a different kernel and a different code, SolidWorks actually interpreted it as having no faulty faces. That's pretty awesome. Do I still have access to FeatureWorks? No, I don't. It's grayed out. So what can I do with this step file? Can I sketch on this face? I absolutely can. So now I've got something I can actually go in and sketch a circle or whatever. And maybe I want to do like a boss extrude. I could actually do that or cut it out. I can do that. Can I do the move face command just like we did with the previous one? Absolutely. I can do move face, and I can just drag it, or I can specify a value over here on the left side. So let's just use that move face. And the cool part is, because I have access to this face, maybe I want to create a plane. With that, I can now create planes on these surfaces because they're recognized as planar, right? So now I can do a coincident, and we're in good shape. So I was able to clearly communicate some changes with this customer. This is a good model. You know, it's not ideal. I don't have a feature tree. I don't have any parametric history with it. And that's ultimately the goal. So I'm going to not save that one. And let's open up. I'm going to open up a .x underscore b. And that's a parasolid. Again, that's the backbone. That's the kernel for SolidWorks, right? So we're going to double click it. And we're going to open this file. And we'll notice, yes, I want to run diagnostics. Everything looks good and clean. And over here on the left, we notice the other ones had that associativity, but this one says imported. And when I click on this click now, I can go to FeatureWorks, and now FeatureWorks is no longer ghosted out, and I have options. So if I pick on options, what are they? I want to create a new file, or I can overwrite the existing file. When I dimension this, and for today's demonstration, I'm going to leave this unchecked. But if I was doing this on my own, I would absolutely add this. This will add time, but what it's going to try and do is auto dimensioning of all your sketches that it's going to bring in. And it's going to try and, if I check this, it's going to try to add constraints to help fully define your sketch. The resize tool and the advanced controls, we're going to leave these set as default for right now. We're going to say, okay. Again, let's go back. Feature works, recognize features. Now, when we brought the other ones in, we didn't have a parametric history tree. Now, all of a sudden, we're going to run feature works. And this starts a little wizard over here on the left side. Do we want it automatic or interactive? I'm going to leave it set to automatic. Do I have a standard part or a sheet metal part, right? Features. And then what am I looking for? I would like for you to find extrudes, drafts, revolves, holes, fillets, and ribs. Sounds good. And we're going to go up here and hit the next page. And now what it's starting to do is analyze this model. It's starting to go through and look at every feature and trying to determine how this part was created. And you can see over here that it's recognized all these features. Boss, extrudes, drafts. If we had patterns, like hole patterns, things like that, you could do find patterns. And it might be a linear, rectangular, circular, mirrored features, things like that. If we were to hit OK, the next, it's going to go, OK, I didn't find any linear patterns. So we say, OK. From here, we're just going to hit our green check. Now, the goal is to always have parametric history with our part. And that's where FeatureWorks comes in. What FeatureWorks, because it can recognize that parasolid, what it will do and what it won't do. What it won't do is create the feature tree based on how you might want this part created. SolidWorks is going to do its very best to understand how this part was created. And now we have features. Over here on the left, we no longer have imported part. We have no something saying it's associated. We actually have a feature tree. I can roll it back. I can look at this part. I can edit that sketch. Now, if you remember just a few minutes ago under options, I didn't check to dimension it or constrain it. Had we done this, most of the time you will get a fully defined sketch. There are times you will not. What I typically do, guys, is when I get this, I go through each feature in each sketch and make sure they're fully defined. And then I'll start to manipulate the part if I have to do anything. So here we can just roll through our history tree. And now we're up to our finished part. And we can save this as a SolidWorks part. So now we have full control. And we have a parametric history of this part all the way through. So when we're looking at file types, whether it is a third party like Inventor or Creo, PTC, Autodesk, whatever that case is, we have things that we can bring these files in. And that allows, called 3D Interconnect. And that allows us to work with and communicate with our vendors on non-native SolidWorks CAD files. We also looked at opening a step file and what we can and can't do, an IGES file, what we can and can't do, and then we looked at a parasolid. As a business owner, and I'm working with customers, and they're like, hey, what type of file type can you use? I always try and get a parasolid if they can get it. If they can't, I know how I can work with them because I have things like 3D Interconnect and FeatureWorks when and where we can use it. Now, John, it is my privilege to introduce John with Dale Carnegie. He's a great friend, as we said early up front. John, I'm going to let you run here for just a little bit. If you want to tell them a little bit about yourself, you got your mic on mute there. There you go.
Absolutely. I am live, so you don't hear me.
Cool. Thanks, John.
You should hear me. You should hear me now. So awesome. So thank you, David. It's powerful on the ability to build utilizing that tool. I know that you are definitively an expert along those lines. I always remember you doing the modeling back in the R&D lab, and you were the first to use SolidWorks, and that improved our clubs tremendously. So again, thank you for what you've done for us in the past when we were both working at Golfsmith. Mm-hmm. So business communication, my understanding is that a very large group of us actually own our own businesses. And we're working either through independent contractors or in projects along those lines. David mentioned that 2/3 of the people who work on SolidWorks have companies of less than 50 people. So what we're going to take a look at now is business communications. I'm currently running a poll over on LinkedIn on numerous HR sites, and the simple question is which is more challenging for you as an HR professional? Is it to hire good talent or retain good talent? And amazingly, what I'm finding, even with the people who only hire people, right now it's at 74% are saying retaining good talent is one of their most difficult challenges. And that ultimately falls right back onto to business communication. As leaders, it's our responsibility and our obligation to our people to help build them and bring them along. So many of you are familiar with Mr. Carnegie's works. In 1936, he published the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And the amazing part about that book is even though it was published in 1936, he started training people in 1912. It is 24 years of in-class lab experiments on how do humans respond. So within the book itself, I do believe, David, you will need to advance that screen for me. There you go. There are 3 major sections to it. The first one is how to become a friendlier person. And those are the first 9 human relation principles. That allows us to work on ourselves. Okay? Then the second group is win people to your way of thinking. Once we've built those stronger relationships, we want to get people to work with us. Okay? And then finally, as a leader, we have to correct people when they're wrong. And amazingly, that's a place where a lot of leaders fail. They break down with that. So what we're going to focus on as we go through this is the first 9 human relation principles. Okay? And so the official title for that is Become a Friendlier Person. So that actually implies us. That's what we can control. So as the principles are coming up here, and don't criticize, condemn, or complain, give honest, sincere appreciation. So, those are, I know for every one of you, it's like, oh my God, those are mind-blowing. I've never known that before. Let's be honest. These are really pretty simple. Right? Don't criticize, condemn, or complain. Think about that for a second. People don't like to be criticized. Right? What happens if you do? So all of you should have access to the ability to type in the chat. So let's test that here really quickly. So go over to the chat and you'll see all panelists that's listed there and all attendees. Just type in where do you reside right now? Okay. So go ahead and type it in the chat to make sure that we all have chat available to us. Grapevine, there you go, Lucas. Keep them coming. San Diego, San Antonio, Belgium, wow, from around the world, California, hey, Los Angeles, Salt Lake City, LaGrange, hey, Missouri City, awesome. So we all have access to the chat aspect of it. We wanted to make sure that we all have that. And one of the other things we should all have access to here in Zoom is that up at the very top, it says you are viewing David Kersley's screen. And to the right, it says View Options. If you click on that, you'll get a drop-down box. And from that, you'll have a parameter that says Annotate. Okay. Click on the Annotate, and you will also have one that says Stamp. So click on the Stamp, and then select a stamp for us. It's either an arrow, a check, a red X, a star, a heart, or a question mark. So pick whatever one you would like to mark. Okay. Everybody make it there? Wasn't sure if this one's going to show up on everybody's screen. Yeah, there we go. I got a star. More stars. David, if that's just you, everybody might not have been able to make the trip. See? So either utilizing the chat box or utilizing the stamp tool, think about these principles, the 9 human relations principles, and say, of these human relation principles, which one of these would have the greatest impact in your organization? Okay? Again, the greatest impact to your team, your leadership, your coworkers. Okay? So type it in the chat box if you don't have the stamp tool for us. Okay? Just put down the number out to the side. So it could, okay, I see number 9, Jessica. Michael's got number 7 in there. Keep them coming. Which one of those principles will have the greatest impact? There you go. Oyuna, okay, 7. Dina has number 4. Awesome. Okay. Oh, David's got number 4. He got number 4 in there. Absolutely.
I'm actually just adding a few stars in so we can kind of
there you go. Cool.
A
that
running
works out.
tally.
Teamwork.
It looks like we got a couple of 9s and a couple 7s.
Teamwork.
So it looks like we got 4 to kind of go over. That's cool.
Yeah, we do have some. Keep them coming. Lucas got number 9 in there. Awesome. Burnell's got number 6. Okay. Okay. Cool. So as you think about this real quickly, okay, so in a moment, Lucas, we're gonna take you off of mute. Let us know, why did you put down number 9? Okay. So Dina, you should have the ability to take him off of mute. Okay. And Lucas, please tell us, why did you put number 9? Come off of mute for us, please. You can speak.
Or he can just type it in the chat if he feels more comfortable.
Yeah, I think we took him off of mute. He's up there on the microphone. So,
okay.
But again, so, or for the rest of you, whatever number you put down, why did you put that number? So Jessica, why did you put number 9? So Jessica, if you can come off of mute for us. Awesome. Jessica's now coming off of mute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Absolutely.
Thanks. I've just seen the power that can actually evoke in employees and staff when they feel valued as a whole person, not just as an individual showing up for work. It brings a good side out, and you get to know what they're passionate about, what they're creative about, and all of those things add into whatever you're trying to do at work.
Thank you. Isn't that so true? You know, find out what your people's passions are. You make them feel important. Great job. So I said, oh, Lucas, sorry that your microphone's not connected. You could type it in the chat box also. Michael, you have written down that no one listens to other people speak. Okay, if we can get you to come off mute, and please let us know, what do you mean by no one listens? See your microphone's up there, but you're still listed at Jude. Oh, he's at work, so he can't speak. Okay, we can understand. That's a good job of being engaged, even though you're at work. You're trying to learn more and create more value for it. But so generally, you mean no one listens to other people speak, and that's so true. What are most people thinking about? What they're going to say. And so this is where we have an opportunity to really jump out and step out and really, change how we deal with people. Okay, now, Edward, I noticed that you've got, and we're going to get you to come off of mute in just a second, Edward Kozel. You put down number 1, don't criticize, condemn, or complain. Why did you put down that, Edward?
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Just generally speaking, people like to complain, and after a while it just gets old and tiresome, and you just kind of, it turns into background noise. You don't really listen to what people have to say once they complain so much. As far as criticizing, that's, there's constructive criticism. Just criticizing, kind of goes along with that. So that's what I feel.
Thank you. Isn't that so true? Is that people start to lose respect for you if you're the one saying, oh, it doesn't work, it's going to be too much trouble, oh, last time I tried it, it was horrible, right? That doesn't inspire leadership. See? We say principle number 1, don't criticize, condemn, or complain. That doesn't mean that we have to abdicate our position as leaders. There are ways of being able to coach people so that they feel empowered as they go through that. Okay? And as Lucas says, I learned from personal experience how important and encouraging genuine appreciation can be. Every employee, every teammate, every coworker has discretionary time. That extra few minutes that they have either before the day starts or at lunch or at the end of the day, how much they put forward towards your project is determined by how well you treat them. See? If you don't treat them well, you'll get the lowest common denominator. You'll get just enough to make sure they don't get fired. People whom are shown appreciated and they feel valued, number 9, you're interested in them, number 4, okay, and you give them honest and sincere appreciation, number 2, they will work extra hard. And that's the type of environment I believe all of us want to be in. Okay, so David, if you can erase all those marks for us here real quickly. Okay. Now we're going to ask, oh, Brunel, you've got that. I just noticed that in the chat. Addressing a person by calling them by their name has a big impact on the rest of what you say. Brunel, if we can get you to come off of mute and tell us a little bit more about that. I see that his microphone came on. He's off of mute. Feel free to speak, Brunel. You're live now. Well, I think number 6, remember that a person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language. David will recognize this individual. We had a leader at our previous company that he called everybody Holmes. Hey, Holmes, how you doing? Hey, Holmes, I heard you did good. Hey, Holmes, I understand you're doing a great job over there. The reality of it is that what he was telling everybody is that you're not even important enough for me to know your name. And so people didn't give him the discretionary effort. Use their name. Remember who they are. Know your people, and you'll have a significant impact with them. So we've got that, got all the marks taken away. So what we're going to be doing now is utilizing the chat tool. Okay, write down in the chat, which of these 9 principles do you believe is the most difficult to use with people you don't know or people you don't like? Okay. Please put it down in the chat box. What number is the most difficult to use with people you don't know or people you don't like? All right. Anya puts down number 4. Keep them coming. I got a 3 coming up on the outside. Come on. We got to keep those numbers coming. Again.
You know, John, can I jump in here for just a second?
Absolutely, David.
You know, one of the most important, you were talking about getting the most out of your people. And my first job was working with a marine navigation company. And I got a position where I was actually in charge of a team. And one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was my boss, Steve Ryan at the time, sat me down and said, this is a position where you're going to lead a team. And he said, you're going to lead people one of 2 ways, David. You're either going to lead people by fear or respect. And he said, when you have a team and they work for you out of fear, example, if you don't do this, I'm going to fire you, and, you know, kind of the fire and brimstone approach, right? You're going to get more mistakes, and your programs you're going to have trouble just getting quality product out. So it's funny you say that, where you ask people to work for you out of respect. You treat them with respect. You treat everyone the same. You remember that person's name. It's funny, you know, number 6, remember that name. That's one of the things Steve told me was remember people's name. And I don't know whether he had done this. You know, it's been a long time since I spoke to Steve, but I tried to go down and learn what everyone's position on the team is, right? This is this is the wire harness group. This is the packaging. This is the shipping. This is receiving. This is the CNC group. And learn to sit down. You know, one of the things that I learned was to go down and sit with the CNC operators and go, hey, listen, I've got a nice part that's modeled up and I got a great blueprint. But if you can't read it and we can't machine it, it doesn't do any good, right? And I remember sitting down with the head of the CNC shop going, you're the expert. You tell me what you need these things to look like and be. And we worked together on that very first one. And you know what? I always got good products. And this guy, Bill, I think he's since passed, but he was always like, hey, David, we can work on this. And just sitting down and letting them feel important was huge. And all of my programs were successful. So when you say, hey, do I work, as a leader? Do I want to berate, or how do I want to be as a leader? From my personal experience, the best piece of advice I got was you can either be a leader through fear or respect, but respect. And if the team respects you and you respect them, you will always, always achieve your goals.
Absolutely. And that is so important for us to recognize that, as David so eloquently pointed out, we can get it through fear, or you can get it through inspiration. Okay? Think about an employer that you had where you've experienced both.
Yeah.
Okay? Someone quite literally that, row, keep rowing, work harder, and I'll get a raise. Chances are that's a former employee. People leave when they're treated like that. So what we have to recognize is that the ones that we find that are the most difficult, and principle number 4 has got a couple of votes up there, and the principle says become genuinely interested in other people. As a trainer, when I'm training additional people, because that's a tough one. Most people say, what's the most important word in that? And they say genuinely. That's a really important word. There's a lot of value in that. But the key for me, and the key that we teach our trainers, is become. And the reason for it is become is a choice. Every person you meet has something good about them. Our job as leaders is to find out what it is. So once we find out what it is, then we can give honest and sincere appreciation, which leads to making the other person feel important, and we can talk to terms in the other person's interest. So 4 gets to 2, which goes to 9, which leads to 8. Okay? All of these principles get tied together, and this allows us as leaders to get the extra discretionary effort out of individuals and to have a powerful conversation and inspire the people around you. Okay? So what we're thinking about right now, these are the first 9 human relation principles. I know that Dina had sent out the little golden book, Mr. Carnegie's Human Relations Principles, and all 30 of those principles are actually listed in there. They're broken into 3 sets. And they also have a second section, which is how to conquer and overcome fear, worry, and attitude control. So there's 60 principles in there that can help you develop yourself and your team. The key for us is to be intentional, because Mr. Carnegie started off his program in 1912, and believe it or not, his first customers were engineers, because they were brilliant people, but their ability to communicate had held them back. And I'm a perfect example of that. As David mentioned, I was responsible for the golf shafts and the golf shaft testing at Golfsmith International. And quite literally, I changed how the golf industry measures, analyzes, and utilizes golf shafts. Okay? Because the really cool part about it is it has stayed that way since I changed it in 2004. But think about it real quickly. I was in that position where I did data analytics, but I couldn't rise in the organization because I couldn't deal with people. Okay? I ultimately took a Dale Carnegie program, and after that, I got a very good raise. I got a good promotion. When Golfsmiths went through some very difficult times, I was retained where many of my coworkers weren't, because I could communicate. Engineers are brilliant. The ability to communicate as both a brilliant engineer and an excellent communicator increases your value exponentially. So as we think about, what can I do to help my team, to help myself, to help my organization? Yes, work on your technical skills. They're critical to your actual day-to-day job. But work on being the individual that others go to as a resource, as a mentor, as a guide, and that will help change your organization. And for those of you who own proprietary businesses, that'll help your business grow. Again, David mentioned I've had the good fortune of being able to play with some of the best in the world. I've played with every major golf championship. I have played with one of the winners, Payne Stewart, Fred Couples, Corey Pavin. All these individuals are fantastic golfers. And I'm truly blessed to be able to say that from a golf perspective, there are very few people in the golf industry who are as good as David Kersley in designing golf clubs. What he did was absolutely fantastic. So they were such good clubs. So we have an opportunity. Hey, David, we've got about 10 minutes left. I know you said you wanted to leave some time on there for individual questions.
Yeah. John, I'm going to run through a couple more things, and then we're going to hang around here for a few more minutes. Thank you, John. Sure. And so today was about cultivating growth through communication. And it was, again, it's on the SolidWorks side and then on your business side. Thank you, John. Tremendous.
Quite welcome. Privileged
so grateful. We've got two $25 gift cards for those of you that have attended today. And for those of you that are watching in maybe a little later today, we would love your feedback. Good, bad, or indifferent. Communication's good, right? So what we're going to do is we'll pool all the comments and feedbacks together, and then at random we will award two $25 Amazon gift cards. And we want to hear your feedback about today's webinar. Maybe it was the first webinar, or just what your story is. Tell us how communication has broken down and maybe how we can help. Tell us about how you've had success with communications as well. So again, what's your story? We want to hear back from you. This series is going to be as successful as you guys make it. Again, it's about you, and we're going to do everything we can to empower you. Again, we got two of these to give away. Our next upcoming webinar is on September the 9th at 11 a.m. Standard Time, Pacific Standard Time. It's going to be with Charn, and I'm not going to attempt his last name, but it's SolidWorks online training event. It's a complimentary trial. Charn is just a tremendous person, and you will learn a lot. So I recommend, get in there and take an online class. And lastly, sign up and subscribe. At GoEngineer, we consider all of you family. So we want to communicate clearly with you. One way we can communicate is through our email newsletter. Please go, and this will be posted up on YouTube shortly. But you can go to GoEngineer.com, sign up for our emails. That'll keep you up to date on the latest news, happenings, and Dina and our marketing team do a tremendous job of communicating. We as engineers, we try and put out 4 contents a quarter, sometimes more, so that you are up to date on the latest tips and tricks inside of SolidWorks. And then there's also SolidWorks training. Now is the time. I know we're kind of coming out of it, right? And we're trying to be prepared for what's next. And now's a great time to get your training in. Go to our new website, GoEngineer.com training. The new website is amazing. And look for SolidWorks training. And you can either do it online, you can do it in person. Hopefully soon we'll be doing more in person. And then also we have our YouTube channel where I know we have probably about 1,000 plus videos up there. So wow. Whether you're searching something for how to make a drawing, how to do detailing, surfacing, maybe you want to see something on 3D interconnect, absolutely put it up there. And then, of course, we're on all the social medias, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I hope I got all those right, or it shows my ignorance of social media. So. But listen, again, John, thank you. We're going to open this up. If you want to ask some questions, You can unmute your mic and then you ask us some questions, or if you would like to jump into the chat, we're going to be here for about another 5 minutes on the button. And if you would like to email myself, it's dkersley@goengineer.com. If you would like to email John, talk about maybe a Dale Carnegie session for your team, something like that, it's john.mathieson@dalecarnegie.com. So if you've got any further questions, John and I will hang out the next 5 minutes. Otherwise, you have to hear us talk about golf stories. And we've got some good ones, you know. I will add that email and send it out. Thank you. Dina is going to put it. She's typing in the chat that she will add in the email and we'll send out with the recording. Okay, I'm going to put the little chat on the screen here so we can kind of get to it. Thank you, Dina, and everybody at GoEngineer who helped make this possible.
Absolutely.
We're truly grateful. And thank you for attending. We'd like to hear from you again what you want out of this series. We will have more of these coming up, and the goal with the next one is I'm working with a patent/trademark attorney. So hopefully we can get that coordinated here. Just trying to figure out schedules at this point. So we're going to go from there. But, you know, John, it's funny. You talk about playing golf with major champions and stuff like that. You know, that's so amazing you got to do that. And I always think back to the times we got to play. We didn't get to play a lot because we were always busy doing golf. And the last thing we wanted to do was go golfing, right? We did it all the time, whether it was fittings or traveling or whatever, right? Designing, whatever, right? All those China trips, right? And I remember the time you and Tommy and I went and played, and he had that infamous 2-iron shot.
Oh my goodness.
You remember that?
Yeah, I think I do.
So he had we were playing, and for those of you listening in, John and we'll remember as we go along here, but he had hit a ball over a bunker but into a little outcropping of trees, and we were asking him, you know, like, what club do you want? He was like, hand me that 2-iron in my bag. And I'm like, what? No one carries a 2-iron?
I know it.
He had that 2-iron. And I
could barely see him.
I know, and I was like, all right, here it is. And I handed it to him, and you had actually helped him find the ball. And you came out of the woods, and I was in the middle of the fairway, and I was watching him trying to figure out how to swing, and he swung. And I heard the sound of the swing, and then I heard the smack of the back of the club because he swung it left-handed through these trees. I heard the smack of the club hit the ball. I heard the ball hit a tree, and then I heard this thud like I'd never heard before. And I was like, what was that? And I look over, and Tommy, you and I were dying because he came out of the woods holding his head. The ball had hit the tree and come back and hit him in the head. He was bleeding everywhere. And he was like, oh, man, anybody got a Band-Aid? I just remember that clearly. Like, so funny.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. You know, but it just goes to show you, he went on to continue to play the round with blood oozing from his head. You know, it looked pretty impressive because we were only on hole number 4, so he played, you know, another 14 holes with looking like he'd gone a round or two with Mike Tyson. So
cool. Well, it looks like here we go. Any recommendations for applying the 9 principles to people you have limited encounters? John, can you see that in the chat?
Absolutely, I can see that.
Edward is a good friend as well, and he is he's one of our customers, and his question is,
Edward, I see that you've got a microphone over there, and I think that they've actually let you control it, so you should have the ability to turn the microphone on and off. Okay. So I may ask you a question here in just a second. So his question is, any recommendations on applying these 9 principles to people you have limited encounters with? For example, someone you encounter in customer service, you're trying to get help. You're trying to get to help you.
Hey, my boss just walked in.
Oh. Okay, well, we'll put you back on mute then. Okay. Think about it for just a second. The first 9 principles, they're primarily about us. Okay. I'm not going to criticize, condemn, or complain. I'm going to give the other person a fine reputation to live up to. Principle number 3 is I'm going to arouse in the other person an eager want. That's what do they want? Well, to do that, you have to do number 4, which is, become genuinely interested in other people. And of course, a smile diffuses all the situation. And if you did like the other individual, I said, "Hey, Holmes, how you doing?" You lose credibility quickly. Mr. Carnegie said, you can make more friends in 2 days than you could in 2 months. Okay? Becoming genuinely interested in other people and listening to them rather than you trying to make them like you. So the first 9 set of principles are about us. So if you're working to get someone you encounter in customer service and you're trying to get them to help you, think about it from their perspective. How are they ranked? How are they graded? They're probably going to be rated or graded by Net Promoter Score, right? So if you think about an individual, principle number 3 is rousing the other person an eager want. So David, or Edward, man, I really appreciate all that you're doing for us, and I'll make sure I go to your evaluations and give you a good evaluation on what we're, once we're done with this episode. So what we're trying to accomplish is, okay, all of these principles work together. Now notice I gave him a fine reputation to live up to. That's principle 28. Then I went to principle number 25, which is ask questions instead of giving direct orders. Okay? Because if you ask questions, people want to answer. And then listen. He'll oftentimes come up with the solution you want, which when you ask the right question, they will come up with the solution you want. If you've got your golden book, number 15 is let the other person do a great deal of the talking. And when they do, and you know what you want, and you've asked the right question, they'll come up with a solution. And when they come up with a solution, say, wow, great, can we do that? And they'll go, yeah, sure. And notice, okay, principle 16 is let the other person feel the idea is his or hers. People, okay, will contribute to a world they help to build. Okay? So ask them the questions to allow them to come up with the solutions that you already know you want. And then they'll be able to do it. And you say, wow, you're one of the best customer service people I've ever met at GoEngineer. I really want to thank you for that. Tie it back into principle 9. Okay? You start to see how all of these principles work together. We just covered the first 9. There's 30 principles that allow us to really have impact. Okay? Hopefully I answered most of your question, hey, Edward. And then Ted, you've got to like the seminar, your golden book. I agree with many points in this book. I was never a leader for many people, but a small crowd only. I was always listening to people and allowing them. Ted, you are an excellent leader. Okay, I'm just going to come out and say that right now. Okay? Absolutely. Leaders build other leaders. And amazingly, the more leaders you build, the higher you rise on the top of the pyramid, which means you rise in the organization. I remember a story here about an individual who was very self-conscious. He became the leader because his dad owned the company. He said, go find somebody that I can fire today so I can feel better. Okay? That's not leadership. That company will have a very high turnover ratio. Turnover is one of the most expensive labor costs, and in engineering in particular. Okay? An engineer, let's say they're just a $50,000 a year engineer. Okay? An engineer, it costs you their yearly salary to replace them. It's expensive if they're not treated well. So.
Well, thanks
Cool.
everyone.
What-
John, I appreciate you and your time, and we're right up against
Absolutely.
the hour and almost 5 minutes here. So on behalf of everyone involved with the Small Business Growth Summit, we appreciate your attendance today. Again, get yourself involved with a chance to win the $25 gift card, so we want to hear back from you. John, always a blessing. Thank you for being here today.
Absolutely, David.
Special thanks
you.
to Jessica and Dina in the background, and Steve Darcy, Nash,
Absolutely.
and Shivani, all working real hard to make this possible. We thank you all. And everyone stay safe, and we'll see you at the next event.
David, I thank you so much for the invitation. It's been an honor to be here with you today.
You got it, brother.